Today's video is brought to you by Stilleto Boy Downs Gaming and Event Center. And be sure to tune in to Trust the Prophets Live Mondays at 8 p.m. Eastern for Monday Night Lights, hosted by Matthew DeSantis.
What's up, everybody? And that is tonight. If you are watching this on Monday, June 26th, we will be live from Stilleto Downs. We are so happy with that show. This is the first look of the Stephen Foster Stakes, a show that me and Matt have been doing leading up to the Kentucky Derby, but it's been a while, Matt, since we've been able to do a first preview between holidays and kids and sicknesses and not even having really these types of races. I know you went solo a few times, but it's great to be back. As I said when I joined you, I love you make me happy the first time I see you when we sign on to do these shows. So how are you?
I'm doing well, and I'm happy to see you too, Colin, and it's great to do these together. And I'll be honest, doing these solo and monologuing for 20 minutes about a race, actually, despite as much as you might make fun of me for talking all the time, not something I particularly enjoy. So I like bouncing off of you and talking about some ideas and you throwing some questions at me and me throwing them back at you. So it's a lot of fun to have you here and talking about the Stephen Foster. And gosh, so much has taken place over the last couple of weeks as we've exited the Triple Crown season, and now we're starting to head towards the summer up at Saratoga and Del Mar, and obviously a lot of big news recently just coming out in the last 24 hours regarding Two Phil's and his ankle injury. Looks like he's not going to be running for the rest of the 2023 season, and seems likely that he may very well retire after that. So a lot of stuff going on, and a lot of obviously important stories. But yeah, man, it's never a dull day in horse racing.
And it's too bad with Two Phil's because we talked about the 3-year-old crop, right? Finally being a crop that's going to replenish some of the older division, because we had a lot of horses that probably weren't going to be out to stud, but a lot of quality horses that we've followed this crop more closely than I have in many recent years as we started to do these shows a lot more. So that's kind of the one concern that you start having now is they kind of start falling off that way, or they don't progress from a ability standpoint. But to lose Two Phil's, who someone is so high on, especially you, is a tough day for the Matt DeSantis household.
Yeah, a little bit. It was very sad. Obviously came on the heels of a dominant effort in the Grade 3 Ohio Derby where he won by 6 lengths and looked really easy doing it. I don't know if something happened with the gallop out or if there was just a hairline fracture or what happened. But obviously there's speculation whether it's a right ankle or a left ankle, but there's definitely an ankle injury, and he's going to be evaluated on Monday. And so we'll see how that all continues to play out. Larry Ravelli, his trainer, saying basically he's out for 2023. And Ravelli, if you read between the lines, basically said horses usually don't come back as good after these sorts of situations. So it seems very unlikely that we'll see Two Phil's on the track again. And yeah, obviously a bummer, and it depletes the 3-year-old crop a little bit, but there's still plenty of other horses to be excited about between Arcangelo and even a horse like Arabian Lion and, a horse like Go Rocket Ride, who's coming off the bench, who's going to be running the Haskell for Richard Mandela. So there's still other names kind of continuing to pop up, but it was funny. I actually went back and looked at, I think, our Lecomte preview, which was one of the first ones of these we did together. And we both kind of kept going back to Two Phil's in that race. I remember that was the first time we were like, this horse is pretty good. Like, this horse just kind of knocks around and like finishes really honest and has a lot of different running styles. So I'm not going to say, we've had Two Phil's for months, but I'm just saying we've had Two Phil's for months. So.
Well, I will say we have on these first preview shows, we tried to do these shows the first day that the past performances come out, and especially if they've come out on Sunday, right? So we're a week out when we've launched these shows, and we have been like spot on. And it kind of goes to that like first gut, just looking through it. Yeah. I've only looked at it for a little bit, but you can knock me for doubling down, but our first previews have been pretty spot on. And the Two Phil's is actually going to lead into a little bit of my transition into the Stephen Fosters. You have two horses as the 4-year-olds who, when you look back at the 3-year-old year in the Triple Crown with Rattle and Roll and Smile Happy, these are two that are now you're seeing in that next year after everyone kind of pays attention to them in that Triple Crown year. And one of them I am very interested in this race, and one of them I am very not. But this is a Breeders' Cup Classic win and you're in, so that's important to note. Yep. It's also important to note that this race is normally run at Churchill Downs. It has moved to Ellis Park, and so that makes it, because it was a Grade 2, has been moved up to a Grade 1. This is actually the first Grade 1 race being run at Ellis Park because of some kind of funky circumstances. And to add on top of that, there's never been a national television broadcast at Ellis Park. This race was supposed to be nationally broadcasted on Fox Sports, and they had to say, we can't do it. And coming from someone that works in television, I can't fathom that we can't find a way to figure it out to get it done. And I kind of look, I know very well and very intricately the logistics behind the scenes in making television happen. But I got to throw a little shade and say you've had plenty of time, in my opinion, to get down there and figure it out, even if you just take the track feed and put a broadcaster on it. So maybe Trust the Prophets should step in and we'll do a Stephen Foster broadcast because Matt DeSantis just loves going live on Saturdays for hours on end.
It's true. And, especially if, shout out to Carson, who joined me for 4 hours for Royal Ascot, and Josh and Caleb from On the Wrong Lead, who joined me as well. That was really nice of them to come and hang out. But yeah, I was a little, I agree. They were kind of throwing some shade at the pea patch there at Ellis Park. And I was not a fan of that. I thought that was a little, I don't know, not shady necessarily, but I didn't like it. And it's too bad because, through those circumstances, this is a park that's getting its day in the sun, and you want it to get its full exposure. And obviously the horse racing world is going to be focused on it, but not having the broadcast, it takes a little shine off. But you pull up the field here, a really good one.
Yeah, that's kind of why we started this off. Is what are your first impressions? The first thing I get is here we go again with West Willpower, Last Samurai, Proxy, and Stilleto Boy, because these guys just keep signing up for most of the same races against each other, and then you have Smile Happy and Rattle and Roll. I think it's an interesting field. I think that I'm really intrigued to watch Smile Happy, see if he can progress off of that last grade 2 race. I know he doesn't have the grade 1 race under his belt. You got 2 Ken McPeaks here with Rattle and Roll. Mm-hmm. People are saying, Rattle and Roll's got the grade 1 victory. That was the Breeders' Futurity, but we all know after 2022 that the Breeders' Futurity is the top race for all prep because we've seen the talent that race just exudes now and is going to be the top race to look forward to in the future. But it's hard to say that race, that grade 1 as a 2-year-old and Rattle and Roll, kind of lends himself to me considering him a grade 1 winner. He's got 3 wins in a row, all at the grade 3 level. But I think grade 3 versus, if you want to call this a grade 1, although it was moved up from a grade 2. I think I've kind of given my hat on how I feel about Rattle and Roll. But where are you as far as that group from Last Samurai, West Willpower, Proxy, Stilleto Boy versus maybe these, I'll call them the newcomers in the 3, 4, 5, 8?
Yeah, we'll start maybe at the bottom with Happy American, a horse I really liked at Fairgrounds and had a couple of really strong second place efforts, but does seem to have dropped off a little bit in the last couple of races. I wonder if this horse has really never had a break over the winter at all. And I do wonder if this horse is just starting to wear down a little bit, or just maybe doesn't have, because this is a deep closer. And I don't know, maybe does have the same burst. I think of a filly like Secret Oath last year, as that she continued to campaign, she lacked that big burst of closing and the ability to really make up ground. I wonder if Happy American's kind of the same way. Listen, Stilleto Boy is a horse that I absolutely love. I don't see how you can't love this horse. He gives his all. Kent DeSormo is a hell of a jockey and gave that horse a beautiful ride at the Big Cap out at Santa Anita to get a grade 1. I never thought this horse could get a 1.25 miles, and he did. I think 1 1/16 and 1 1/8 miles is where this horse is probably best. So Stilleto Boy is a horse I always have a ton of respect for. I think the track sets up nicely for West Willpower. Ellis Park has been a rather speed favoring track. We've seen that with a horse like Society, who just absolutely blitzed them last weekend there. We saw that again with a horse like Hoosier Philly the week before, who just went to the lead. Granted, very uncontested, but took him gate to wire. There's been a lot of those gate to wire winners at Ellis Park. So you do look at those horses on the front end, whether that's Stilleto Boy, Speed Bias, or West Willpower, and you think maybe that's where the winners come from. Now, what I like about Smile Happy is that he's obviously a very versatile horse. If I had to pick between the 2 McPeak, that's the one I would lean toward, because he reminds me a lot of 2 Phils, a horse we talked about just a second ago, in that he's one of the few horses, and 2 Phils had this, and so does Smile Happy. From a time form US standpoint, he's got triple digit early and late pace figures. that is extremely rare to see from a horse, to have that strong of early pace and late pace. And you see it there up on the screen, a 102 early time form pace figure and a 101 late pace figure. Typically, you're giving up pace in one end or the other. And for him to be able to have that sort of versatility and just that sort of class, quite frankly, to be able to do that, I think is really impressive.
Yeah, and as you see here, we'll talk pace, as with normally kind of what we lead into in this show, and didn't seem like there was as much early speed. When I look at Brisnet, this is kind of my first time looking at your time form pace. And I had Stilleto Boy, West Willpower, and Speed Bias as your three, which is basically what you have as well, although you've included Smile Happy, interestingly enough.
I think Smile Happy has the versatility. I think ideally he'll sit mid-pack. I don't think he wants to be up in the lead. He's got good early speed, but not great early speed. And so what I would say is a horse like Stilleto Boy and Speed Bias and West Willpower, those are your three leaders, I think, very clearly. And it's just a matter of how much the track allows them to, keep running, and whether or not they wear each other out on the front end and then open things up to those horses that have those big late pace speed figures.
And I guess that would be the question. I mean, are you interested at all in Speed Bias? And do you think he's there enough to soften up someone such as West Willpower or Stilleto Boy?
Yeah, I mean, Speed Bias is a really interesting horse. He's a horse I actually got to see in person at the Pimlico special at Pimlico that day. And he ran a hell of a race and just barely got beat by Rattle and Roll at the end. And he's fast. I mean, he's been turning out bullets too. I mean, you look at those workouts that he's recorded coming out of that Pimlico special, 59-3 bullet. And that's the first work since that race. And then comes back with a 47-1 bullet at Churchill. This horse is ready to roll. Now, the horse is 7 for 9 in the money, 6 for 9 in the exacta, but only has 2 wins. I do think this is a horse that, going now that mile and an eighth, has done it before. Granted, it was on a sloppy sealed track at Oaklawn, but I think he can absolutely soften up Stilleto Boy a little bit on the front end, depending on what sort of ride he gets, or West Willpower. I think he can open things up for horses coming from a little bit off the pace.
As we take a look at the Brisnet Prime Power, we've looked at this through some of our shows. And what I've added on this week's show is, because I always talk about it, but I figured it's better to just have it there to reference so people could take a look. And that is that the top Prime Power horses, and you'll see it at the top there, if they have a 3-point advantage, they score 39% of the time, a 6-point advantage, 46% of the time, and a 10-point advantage, which we saw last show we did. I'm trying to remember who that was off the top of my head.
It might have been Forte over like the Florida Derby. It might have been like Forte over everybody else or something like that. Yeah.
And that scores 55% of the time. So we have West Willpower here with a better than 6-point advantage. So if you're looking at Brisnet Prime Power, we're scoring 46% of the time. I'm curious to ask you, West Willpower, are you feeling that he's at least 46% chance to win?
Well, I don't know about 46%. I think he is. It's very specific. I would put it more down around 30. Okay. I think out of the field, he is if they were to fictionally run this race 100 times, I think he wins the most number of times out of all the horses in this field. Okay. I do feel confident in saying that. He's a really good horse. I do wonder, whether he can really win from well off the pace. He in that New Orleans Classic, he looked really good sitting off Art Collector and then just drawing away. That's the sort of race I think he would need to have here. The thing that's impressive about West Willpower is just, he's now had, 5 straight races of 100 plus Beyer speed figures. I mean, he's turning in consistently great performances, 102, 100, 103, 109, 106. And so he's, even if he hasn't won all of those, he's been turning in really strong, consistent performances at a variety of different tracks, Keeneland, Churchill, Oaklawn, Fairgrounds, and back at Churchill. So he's been all over the place. And, he's a really dominant horse for Brad Cox. And I know I made this comparison before. He feels a little bit like a Knicks Go in that he was in another barn, went to Brad Cox, and has emerged as a really dominant horse now in this handicap division for Brad Cox, in the same way that Knicks Go, well, again, transferred barns, went to Brad Cox, and suddenly became a little bit of a new horse. West Willpower was always a good horse, but it does seem like Brad Cox has gotten him up to another level and seems like he's working out quite nicely. 6 furlong work at Churchill, things like that. So 46%, maybe not. But I do think he's the most likely winner if you run it 100 times.
The issue I had with this list was Rattle and Roll. I would have Stilleto Boy and Last Samurai above Rattle and Roll, and I know the point difference there is pretty, minuscule. So I'm splitting hairs. But as far as the order of there that you see, West Willpower, Smile Happy second, Proxy third. Where are you? Could you kind of feel that is a proper alignment?
Yeah, I mean, I'll go back to what I said. I mean, Stilleto Boy just feels like a very honest horse. He's never missed the board at this distance. Yeah. He is. He's a grinder. He's 5 for 5 at this distance, hitting the board. He just feels like a horse that's always going to be there. And even if you pass him, he doesn't give up. He's not a horse that just like once he gets headed, it's just like, all right, well, I'll pack it up and pack it in. And
great stable dual horse.
He is a great stable dual horse. So I've used him so many times. But I think he is. I like him maybe a little bit more than those prime power rankings do. Proxy's a horse that I've never gotten a great feel for. He goes out and wins that Grade 1 Clark, then goes and kind of delivers a rather meh performance at the Pegasus, comes back with a huge effort at the Santa Anita at the Big Cap, just losing barely to Stilleto Boy and coming running late, and then delivers a nice win at the Oaklawn Handicap over Last Samurai and Stilleto Boy and gets his revenge in a really big race, where Last Samurai, if I'm not mistaken, rubbed against the rail coming for home that day. So
yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, I mean, so it is interesting. You're right. These horses just keep kind of running against each other, and it's a little bit of what we talked about with this 3-year-old crop. They all kind of take turns beating each other. It's the same thing with the 4-year-old crop. They all kind of take turns beating each other.
Yeah, I always remember Proxy because that was a show that me and that Clark Stakes was a show that me and Vinny did together, and he loved Proxy that day.
I know he did. Yeah.
And that was one that stands out. It's funny when you do these shows, you just remember those moments when someone drills it, and that one Proxy will always go out to my man Vinny. So all right, so time to put the rubber to the pavement, as they say. What we like to do is take a little piece out of Matt's Capping the Card, where we give a top pick and a value pick. This is for the Stephen Foster Stakes, year 2023, July 1st. Imagine that, we're already in July. So Matt, you've talked quite a bit about West Willpower here. Is that where you're going?
Yeah, as my top pick, I'm going to go with West Willpower. I think he's the horse that he's just the most consistent. Because the other thing, if you look at Smile Happy, at least from a buyer standpoint, I'm curious. I don't know if Brisnet reflects this as well, Colin. He's coming off a massive performance in that Ali Sheba. The last time he came off a triple-digit speed figure performance, he ran 10 points less the next time out. I wonder about consistency with Smile Happy. And whether he can line up 2 races in a row. There's no doubt that Ken McPeak has these 2 horses running very, very well. And these were horses that were kind of Derby also rans last year who have come back stronger and better as 4-year-olds. And I'm thrilled to see it. But I'll go with West Willpower. I think he sits the right trip. I think he sits just behind Speed Bias and Stilleto Boy. And he'll let those 2 burn each other up rather than getting burned up himself and then go for it.
Yeah, so Brisnet does follow you. The Bluegrass Stakes, he ran 101, then came back in the Derby with a 91, so exactly 10 points different. Then he ran that optional claimer at Oaklawn and put up 106. That was the win in March. Then came back in the Oaklawn Mile and put up a 92. And then came back in the Ellis Sheba, put up that 106 again. But I'm going to argue a little bit here where the 10-point drop to the Kentucky Derby, I always just kind of toss the Kentucky Derby. I have no problem drawing a line through that. So let's go back to that Oaklawn Mile Grade 3. He had some traffic issues there, and it was also a mile. And I think Smile Happy just performs a little bit better at the mile in the 16th or the mile in the 8th. And if he's got traffic in a shorter distance, then you question of the ability to really get up. He got up for 3rd that day. Yeah. I'm going to take a shot with Smile Happy as my top pick in here. And he's kind of been this horse that I liked him in the Triple Crown season. And then obviously he disappointed both in the Bluegrass and then obviously the Kentucky Derby. But he's come back at his 4-year-old season and has been, he's done really well, I think. Yeah, and Corey Lannery's aboard again. Now that you don't look anything into the jockeys here because Ken McPeak said, look, Brian Hernandez rides Rattle and Roll. I'm not going to switch Brian Hernandez and put him on Smile Happy and have Lannery run Rattle and Roll when he's never run him before. Yeah. So if you're playing that little, Hernandez usually probably right. He's McPeak's number 1 guy. Yeah. Usually you can't really play that game with these 2. So you can take that out of the mix. And I'm just going to take a shot with the 4-year-olds over these horses who, Proxy's got a grade 1 and a grade 2. Stilleto Boy's got a grade 1 and a grade 2. Smile Happy has 2 grade 2 wins. He's looking for that first grade 1. But that last race, he beat Art Collector, who's a grade 1 winner. Yeah. And so although it's listed as a grade 2 race, I'm just hoping that what he showed in that Alashiba at Churchill, he can repeat. And I hear you with your concerns. But you know what? It was also May 5th.
It was. And let me give you I'll bolster your argument a little bit for you and as well, which is, and I remember talking to Sarah El Badwi about this, and I remember talking maybe to Josh Rodriguez as well. I talked to a couple of people about this fact, which is we all like playing horses that are the ones that bust up trainer angles. In other words, the horse is so good it overcomes the trainer angle. So I'm thinking in particular of a horse like I believe it was Darth Vader for Rusty Arnold, Rusty Arnold was something like 0 for 42 coming off the bench. And Darth Vader, or was Red Carpet Ready, it was one of the two. I forget which one he has, but it was one of those two, comes back and wins off the bench. And you go, oh my God, 0 for 42. And of course, this is the horse that does it. Then the next time out, there's some obscenity. He's like 0 for 63, second off the bench. The horse comes back, wins second off the bench. You go, this horse can overcome whatever the hell's going on in Rusty Arnold's barn. Ken McPeak, we've pointed this out before, is awful when taking horses off Lasix. Look at what Rattle and Roll and Smile Happy have both done. They've overcome that angle where McPeak was 1 for 26 in graded stakes races taking horses off Lasix. Smile Happy, Rattle and Roll, both overcame that trainer angle. And those are horses I like to look at and go, wait a second, this horse is so good. You toss all the other stuff out the window. This horse can overcome it. So, I Smile Happy, I'd make no argument against a horse like that. It makes all the sense in the world to me.
I also love about Smile Happy. One thing that you said earlier was the versatility. Yeah. And that's something that I'm always attracted to. Don't need to always see a horse on front. Don't need to see him with this high heart pace that he has to crash into. Mm-hmm. He's shown the ability to kind of do a little bit of both. So Smile Happy will be my top pick. Where are you going for your value play? We say this without knowing what our morning lines are. Who are you going to go?
Yeah, listen, if he is a value play, I'm going to stick with my boy Stilleto Boy, just because he's a hard-knocking horse that, at a mile and an eighth, maybe he can hold on the front end, depending on how the track is playing and how much pressure speed bias ends up putting on him. But or whether or not Kent can do what he did in the big cap and make him sit a little bit, which is not an angle we typically see from Stilleto Boy, but he can do it. And so he's just an honest horse. And I don't know what price you're going to end up getting. I mean, he feels like probably the fourth choice on the board, probably, maybe. So maybe you get 5-1, 6-1, something around there on him, maybe even a little bit higher. I don't know. It'll be interesting to see. I would like to, the horse that kind of intrigues me the most is Happy American. He's a horse that I've liked before at the fairgrounds. I do just worry that maybe he's getting a little run down, but he's a horse I really do like a lot. And he might be a really big price. And he's a horse that if they push the pace too much, could run up into the board, at least for a minor piece, and maybe a horse to use in verticals.
I'm with you. Stilleto Boy is my value play as well. I love this grinder. 1.8 million in earnings. And I'm going to use your same stat that you just threw at me with Ken McPeak and overcoming the angles, right?
Yeah.
Stilleto Boys by Shackelford, average winning distance of 6.5, 6.9. Shackelford's known for the speed, right? Like you get speed when you get Shackelford. Shackelford was a grinder, just like Stilleto Boy is, and performed admirable in his 4-year-old season. This is Stilleto Boy's 5-year-old season. Stilleto Boy hasn't raced since April 22nd, so you get a 10-week layoff there. But I think that this horse is primed coming into this spot because that race, as you talked about, maybe being taken too much out of Smile Happy. You wonder if Stilleto Boy really in that Oaklawn, that was a grinding race for him, and I'm hoping that the 10 weeks off is going to be perfect for Stilleto Boy. But going back to the average winning distance of 6.5, when you're going a mile and an eighth, I'd be like, yeah, I'm all set. Stilleto Boy's got to win at a mile and a quarter. In a mile and an eighth. So grade 1, grade 2, Victor, and that is where I will go for my value play. So we're in line with a value play on Stilleto Boy, and maybe you just do an exacta box of those 3 horses, and you'll find your way to the winner's circle. Anything else, Matt, before we wrap up?
No, just, I mean, obviously encourage people to actually, wherever they can find the live track feed of Ellis Park, to watch the Stephen Foster, even if it's not being covered by a major network, make sure to check it out. And obviously we're going to have, I believe the Formula is going to be doing a full field rundown of this. So we're going to have some more content around the Stephen Foster on the channel for people to check out throughout the week.
Please like and subscribe. Check us out if you're watching this on Monday, as we drop this tonight live, Assiniboia Downs at 8 o'clock. We will give you a half-hour run-up for your stable duels, and then we are live throughout the night. The chat has been unbelievable, so if you haven't been able to join us on the live shows yet, just jump in there. You can talk to us live. You can give us who you like. The community is growing. The community is stronger than ever, and you do not want to miss out. So please come and be a part of that. We will talk to you tonight, and we will talk to you next time. Good luck at the Stephen Foster at Ellis Park.